We're not sure why, but for some reason, human beings left Africa and started migrating 100,000 years ago. Could have been earlier, could have been sooner, but first they reached the Middle East, then Asia, then everywhere else. The migration led to the birth of the earliest, most ancient civilizations we have records of, and they're all based in Asia or right next to it. The largest continent in the world and a cradle for the early development of ancient man, to a cradle for the modern world, holding the two most populous civilizations in the world, India and China. Economic powerhouses, exotic fringe cultures, ancient civilizations, Siberian frost, and some of the only indigenous tribes left known to us that haven't made contact with the modern world yet. You can find all of this in Asia. Every urban center, every shrine, every complex Asian-style roof, you can find all of it in the various Asian teams under the umbrella of Minecraft builders seeking to build the earth in Minecraft. So pull out some opium. Just kidding, pause your anime, and explore with me the modern wonders of the largest continent on Earth, with ties to the birth of the human race itself. This is everything Asia's ever done. We built Singapore many years ago, but since it's been many years, Team ASEAN has managed to build some new districts. One being Singapore's Chinatown, a district with a vast historical legacy. This place was originally just the unofficial designation within colonial Singapore where the Chinese tended to reside, before developing into an official designated district. This district once had Teochew and Hokkien merchants, who have since departed for other districts, leaving Chinatown mostly to the Cantonese. If you were to achieve some sort of dream state where your brain time traveled yourself into Singaporean Chinatown of the 1800s, you would wake up to merchants preparing for their day, the tailing of bean sprouts, the skin of frogs being peeled, snakes killed and skinned, and jewelry displays arranged by the mystical women with the power of healing. There would also be brothels. That was the thing. Let's take a look at the Kuala Lumpur city center in Malaysia. If you've never heard of this city, shame on you. Look at those fucking skyscrapers. And yes, those are the largest twin skyscrapers in the world. The Minecraft land on which we stand, often called the KLCC, originally was an affluent suburban neighborhood historically. The gradual shift to skyscraper-laden paradise started in the 1950s. Today, it holds the aforementioned towers, the fourth highest hotel in the world, and much more. The wider metropolis is home to almost 8 million people and is among the fastest growing regions in Southeast Asia, a far cry from its origin as a mining stop with a reputation for developing malaria. Just a reminder that big and amazing things can be born from small and painful beginnings. But if you want to talk about painful beginnings, we can talk about the Churo and Krung Road, the first road to be constructed with modern methods back in the 1860s, and has retained its original materials. This is in Bangkok, and it signified a large direction turn in Bangkok's development, since for most of recent history up until that point, the main transportation through Bangkok was by boat. And so, slowly but surely, Bangkok transitioned from emphasis on canals to emphasis on roads, with the importance of Churo and Krung gradually declining as roads became more and more widespread. Today, the original road that changed it all is surrounded by modern decor and illustrious urban architecture, built amazingly in Minecraft by Team ASEAN. This is a park in Cebu City, which is the oldest city in the Philippines. It has some surrounding completed progress and is sitting on an island. But interestingly enough, it's sitting on one out of 150 islands contained just within the city limits of the city of Cebu itself, with the population of that radius being almost 1 million. I mean the radius of the city, not just the progress you see here. 1 million people in the buildings pictured would be insane. We'd have to lay them down and start stacking them vertically. Here's a gigantic, recently opened sports stadium. The Ralamangala Stadium, also in Bangkok, Thailand. Oddly enough, because the stadium is made out of concrete, it is claimed that the stadium could not be beautiful, but I disagree. The stadium capacity is 65,000, one of the largest we've seen so far. The stadium hasn't just hosted sports, but also political protests. You can see surrounding completed progress around the stadium because Team ASEAN really believe in making their monuments and special attractions look good. It would be easier to just make the stadium and then leave the surroundings empty, but including them just gives it that special touch, which we're going to note here because I will tell you guys, making even just one city block in any given area, it's really hard. They probably had an entire event to build around this thing just to give it proper surroundings, and I pay homage to them in that respect. Okay, Look at this. No, you didn't get roofied. No one put anything in your drink. This build is the one that's tripping balls. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Mahanikon Tower. Don't worry, nothing's wrong with it, even though it looks like it was put through some sort of matter teleportation portal between universes and didn't get rearranged properly. That's why it's so f***ing cool. Its prismatic shape with a tendril of imprinted coiling throughout its structure was designed by a firm, not an individual architect. It was a Pace development, who also has projects in the Middle East, probably Dubai, if I were to guess. The highest priced condominium penthouse in the building in 2013 was being offered by the firm for 480 million baht, which equates to almost 14 million US dollars. If that sounds unattainable to you, try cutting back on the avocado toast. Here is a palace out of the annals of history. This is the Mandalay Palace, the last standing palace of the Burmese monarchy, the second largest empire in the 13,000-year Burmese history, constructed in 1859, just before the fall of the empire in 1885. The British, of course, took over some time after and renamed it Fort Dufferin, and so much of the palace was damaged from bombing in World War II. After that, the British, suddenly feeling ashamed for conquering the whole world, left in the 1960s, said sorry, and gave the palace back. Thank God they got rid of that name Dufferin, and the Mandalay Palace was reconstructed over time. Because of this, much of the remaining palace is of modern materials, invoking the Ship of Theseus paradox. And if you want to say this is no longer the Mandalay Palace, you can add that to the list of amazing shit destroyed by the careless nature of the early 20th century and the evil that brought on the global destruction. Now here in Punggol, during that same time period, they rounded up anti-Japanese citizens and shot them with firing squads. The massacre is memorialized with a plaque, and Punggol is actually one of the oldest neighborhoods in Singapore, older than the British founding of the modern Singaporean identity beginning in the 19th century. Today, Punggol is home to this avalanche of residual high-rise apartments bordering on skyscrapers. Amongst all the residential apartments, Team ASEAN has also built in this area the Oasis Primary School, the Greendale Secondary School, and the Waterway Woodcrest. This area had farmland developed for rubber production for most of its history, but this new development initiative that's been accelerating since the 1990s aimed to modernize the area, making something really fun to work on, building in Minecraft. I love this area of the world because they build like this, and if you love these kinds of high-rises, get ready for what's coming next, because in Hong Kong, it takes these designs to unfathomable heights. Okay, so we have a team called HKMU. They've been building Hong Kong and Minecraft, and holy shit. Let's take a look at this area, the downtown of Hong Kong Island. While we take a look at this gigantic area, we have to wonder, how is making this even possible? We made a video on how we can't build China, yet here is Hong Kong, built in China, made by Chinese native to the Hong Kong area. People in Hong Kong can go on the internet and access all of the normal websites. They're not sequestered from the world the way most of the billion living in China are. They're not isolated. There was something called the First Opium War. In part of a contract to end the fighting, the Qing dynasty ceded Hong Kong to the British as part of the negotiated terms of ceasefire. Hong Kong was owned and governed by the British Empire until 1997, where they gave up one of their last most significant colonies and transferred ownership back to China. Hong Kong maintains its government independence, which means the governing values ingrained from 150 years of British rule endure in their society, allowing them to be connected to the world in a way mainland China is not. They maintain their systemic independence for now, but how many of you have heard the protests in Hong Kong in the last 20 years, specifically a few years ago? It stems from China very slowly attempting to integrate Hong Kong into its authoritarian rule over the territory. For now, Hong Kong can still access the internet freely, and thus we have a Hong Kong team building a great example of what we're missing out on with mainland China's isolation of its populace, an example of just how epic China and Minecraft could be. Now here's the area widely known as Kowloon, the mainland area of Hong Kong north of the island we just explored, the most populous area in Hong Kong. Weirdly enough, while in 1911 the population was just over 7,000, just 100 years later the population grew to over 2 million. Yes, For most of history, particularly the years of British acquisition, this was mostly undeveloped land, used by the British for occasional tiger hunting expeditions. Yes, the stereotypes are true. Now in modern Kowloon, only 0.3% of the population is British. Most of the recent Hong Kong protests were in opposition to a bill that would allow people who violated laws in Hong Kong to be extradited to and tried in mainland China. You can see why Hong Kong citizens might have a problem with that if you're at all familiar with the situation. As Chinese politicians seem to have aims to dissolve the border between Hong Kong and China, many in Hong Kong have protested this en masse, a far cry from many in Hong Kong enthusiastic about rejoining their historical motherland in 1997. But the grip is tightening. If Hong Kong loses its British-influenced identity over the next 50 years due to forced hegemony by its new owners, I can't help but wonder if we often end up missing those once they've gone, and didn't know what we needed until it was too late. Great Britain may have ended up having an identity crisis and going on an apology tour that resulted in the breakup of the largest empire in recorded human history, but in cases like this, one might wonder if the relinquishment of all of its territories ended up having a positive outcome. As it is, Hong Kong remains a really cool and interesting place, and I'm rooting for it staying that way. The Hong Kong Minecraft team have also begun progress on Tsuen Wan, which has inhabitants in the settlement of Tsuen Wan, then known as Sak Wan, as long as 2,000 years ago. The meaning of the name is derived as Pirate Bay, and to illustrate this, the nearby park known as Sam Pak Sin literally means 300 coins because pirates ransomed anyone who tried to go through the area, much like a bridge troll ransoming a fee from you by threat of force. Tsuen Wan has less of them, but the usual insanely hypnotic high-rise skyscrapers that seem to never end in height and quantity kind of reminded me of that crazy city in the movie Inception, a movie which I now realize is quite old. I'm f***ing old. Conversely, Sen Quan O is one of the 9 new towns in Hong Kong with development being approved in the 1980s. Team HKMU's progress here is gigantic, just insane. And while we're showing it, let's talk about the significance of this team. Going around and looking at these areas, we've surmised and shown you 4 different areas. They've built others, but of these 4, 3 of them are absolutely gigantic. Each one rivals the size of completed progress in Seattle, the project spearheaded by me to build 1 building, then 100, then 1,000, and then 10,000. Now this would be impressive enough on its own, but you have to realize how small Hong Kong is. It's a small place geographically. Contrast its progress to Russia. Per capita, Hong Kong might be the most ambitious and complete area in the entire project of Build the Earth when you're ratioing on either geographical size or builder count of the team in question. It is for that reason that I award Hong Kong, among others, my personal favorite in terms of teams that have arisen in Build the Earth. Now on to Team Korea. Korea has completed some progress in South Korea. In Seoul, they've made a number of things, including the National Assembly building. Prior to this, they were using a building built all the way back during the Japanese occupation during World War II, until they built this hall that seats 400 in 1975, and has since been used for presidential inaugurations every 4 years. Now they've also created these Park 1 towers, a 1.5 billion skyscraper cake that's equal parts shopping, hotel, and office complex, designed by Lord Richard Rogers, a fine chap from London serving as an architectural advisor, advising, naturally, 69 floors. Very nice. They've also got the 63 building, which was the tallest structure outside of North America when it was built in 1985, built as a landmark for the 1988 Summer Olympics. They've also begun on the Lot Tower, which is this massive skyscraper that even before beginning to terrace the floors in construction, the site itself took 13 years of planning and preparation to start. 123 freaking stories. They've also begun progress on a historical site, Gwanghwamun Plaza, a popular and well-known neighborhood in Seoul going by the name of Daechidong, and Dokdo, the Korean name for Leoncourt Rocks, a fascinating rock formation which arose in the Cenozoic era 2 to 4 million years ago that are in geological time spans. Looking at it in Minecraft, you might be confused as to why they're made of diamond blocks. That's probably not what they're like in real life, but builders love to leave stuff like this in weird block formations to differentiate them from typical Minecraft terrain so that they're not affecting natural terrain when using world edit commands. And that's everything Korea's ever done, and also everything Asia has ever done. Now, I know what you're thinking. Where's China? Where is India? Well, we've dedicated an entire video as to why we can't really build mainland China and why it probably isn't a very good idea. But there's also no Team India, you know, that gigantic nation just south of China, which also hosts over 1 billion residents. A significant number considering the planet is only 8 billion strong. Well, we don't really know. While there is a YouTube and Minecraft player ecosystem of Indians, it isn't as large as you would expect it to be, nowhere near what you would expect, perhaps the largest non-English speaking Minecraft user base since it's the largest population center outside of China, which is close to the world in terms of internet access. But no, they're not even in the top 5. Second place outside of the United States being Brazil, speaking Portuguese. But you would at least expect there to be a team. We got no Indian team. Nevertheless, what teams like ASEAN and Hong Kong have achieved is incredible, and there is so much untapped potential to be created in our project in terms of Asia, the largest continent, the cradle of one of the oldest human civilizations, and the cradle of frozen Siberia. A huge thanks to our Tier 5 patron Solly for helping me sneak into Greenland in order to make this video. What a champ.